I found a video on YouTube that we're going to be reacting to, basically just listening to the beginning part of it. It's from a Companies Explained series. I think you're really going to enjoy it. This video here is called 7-Eleven, the accidental company. Now, I don't know if accidental is the best descriptor, but you're going to find out why they call it that now.
In the 1920s, not many Americans had access to electricity. It was only those who lived in the affluent neighborhoods of major cities who did. And also, it was still early days for the refrigerator. So even among those who had access to electricity, not many had a refrigerator at home to keep their perishables fresh. But that does not mean people did not preserve perishables. There was a way to do it, and that was to use a block of ice put next to whatever needed to be preserved.
I'm curious, if you're around my age or younger, have you ever seen an actual ice box, the predecessor to the refrigerator? My parents have one. It's a family heirloom. We always called it Grandma's icebox.
So if, for example, you wanted the meat to last 3 days or a week, you had to pack it together with ice. Do you know what this way of preserving food did? It created a demand for ice, which fortunately could be bought from ice shops nearby. In the city of Dallas, Texas, selling ice was a big business, as was the case around the country. Perhaps to increase efficiency and cut costs, in 1927 several ice shops in the city merged to form Southland Ice Company.
In today's day and age, can you imagine what the world was like when there was a huge consumer need for ice?
Given the need to quickly move the ice from the storage at the store to the consumer homes, the ice stores were mostly close to or in residential areas. One employee of the Southland Ice Company, who's been identified as Uncle Johnny, Jefferson Green, identified a need in the customers he was serving. They needed items like milk, eggs, and bread when the grocery stores around were closed. He talked to his employer, one Joe C. Thompson Jr., about the possibility of selling milk, eggs, bread, and other items at the ice shop. With permission from his employer, Uncle Johnny stocked these items.
I might be just misremembering it, might be my memory playing tricks on me, and it might just be a simplified omission from this video. But I believe the Southland Ice Company did two things to diversify its products, if you will. It goes from just selling ice and distributing ice to consumers to what I recall as becoming a place where people could actually store stuff. Say they didn't have enough room in their ice box, or they had large perishable items that couldn't fit in their residential ice box. Well, they've got these little stores spread out near residential areas for distribution purposes, and it's filled with ice. Well, why not just preserve some food there? I recall that they basically kind of became a refrigerator storage unit for people's excess perishables or large perishables. And while they were doing that, well, they started stocking their own and selling things.
And soon, people were buying, especially during the weekends and holidays when most of the shops around were closed. Noticing the success, Joe C. Thompson Jr. decided to replicate this enterprise in the other ice shops around town. Business was booming, and the new venture was generating more revenue than ice blocks. And guess what? This turned out to be the survival path for Southland Ice Company. In the following few years, more Americans had access to both electricity and refrigerators and did not need to buy ice blocks to preserve their perishables. If ice blocks remained their primary product, they would most likely have closed down sooner or later.
And that's where we're going to stop this video today, even though I think the rest of the history that's explained here is full of a lot of interesting and surprising twists and turns as 7-Eleven goes from the Southland Ice Company to 7-Eleven. One of the really interesting twists is how 7-Eleven's name described the original operating hours after it was no longer called Southland Ice Company. In fact, it was named Totem in between. There's some fun stuff about that, but it was open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Those were the operating hours for 7-Eleven, even though it's open now basically 24/7. The name has stuck for years and years and years since then. I think that's very cool. So what can we learn from this story? Well, what happened if Southland Ice Company kept all their eggs in one ice basket? They eventually would have become unneeded because of the refrigerator entirely. But instead, they diversified the resource that they already had, storing ice, and capitalized on their ability to, with very little additional cost, store perishables for other people or store perishables that could be sold when the alternative for the supermarket, the grocery store, was closed. That's cool. They were able to change their plan and adapt to the refrigerator becoming mainstream. They were able to continue being successful as a company because they weren't so rigid on their one specialization, their one idea, their one plan that was, at the time, brilliant. Similarly, in our financial lives, we need to be looking at the different opportunities that are around us, the different financial products that develop, the way that tax laws change, the way that society changes, the way that culture changes. We need to look at the landscape of our financial world, of the economy, and be able to adapt our plan, recognize where universal truths are universal truths and they're going to hold for long periods of time, and where something is relative to the environment that we're in, relative to the bits and pieces of the economy that are outside of our control. There are some parts of financial planning that simply need to be updated as circumstances change. And that's going to be the focus in the main topic.